Next, ladies and gentlemen, we have a panel discussion on deconstructing loyalty programs as a mode of customer engagement. Please welcome our panel members. Black, the CEO of Urban Foods LLC, who is obsessive about customer experience and customer engagement and is curious about the customers and the data and what it can reveal to the customers' shopping experience more enjoyable. Next, we have Mr. Mohd Sohel, MD of EKK Group, a relentless optimist who believes there is no failure, only feedback and growth. EKK Group is an AED 100 million company with the strength of more than 300 employees. Mr. Saleh AlTunaib, CEO of Oncost, who has been the leader of the startup team behind the success of the omni-channel strategy of the enterprising company Oncost from Kuwait. Saleh AlTunaib has dedicated all his career in managing and successfully leading companies in both the F&B and retail grocery industries. The moderator of this cutting-edge panel discussion is Mr. Sajid Azmi. He is the CEO of Yegertek and a serial entrepreneur and outstanding corporate leader. Sajid Azmi has 17 years of experience across multiple verticals, including retail and healthcare, to the table. Welcome, gentlemen. The floor is all yours.
Hi, everyone.
Morning. Thanks, Deepika. I hope everybody's able to hear me. And good morning, gentlemen. It's a pleasure being here. Hi, Mark. Assalamu alaikum, Saleh and Mr. Sohel. This is a very interesting topic, one which I know each of you have spoken at different times and are very passionate about this topic. So I think it will be good for the audience also to hear perspective from a very diverse group of individuals and different backgrounds. So given the time constraint, I will immediately get into the questions so that people can get your point of views. And I'll start with Mark. From your experience, you have been working in different countries. You've worked in Pakistan, Kuwait, Oman, and then UAE. Now you've been here for quite a long time. And I know you're passionate about the whole engagement and loyalty. What do you think are the key elements that make or break a loyalty, especially in this market, in this business vertical?
Yeah, sure. I think what you have to understand is what you want to achieve with it, because people set out at the beginning with the whole reason for setting it up is because everybody else has one. Everybody else has a loyalty scheme, so therefore I need one as well. And we end up with a variety of different benefits and things based upon the scheme that people come out with. And then they sort of forget about it because it just becomes another KPI. What we initially did is we sort of broke it into 3 blocks. So we understood that the front end, which was the app that the customers saw, was for customers. So therefore we had to build it for customers. We didn't want to make it too fancy, too full of technology, too messy, untidy. It was basically there for the customers themselves. The second bit was about the data cube and how we sliced and diced it, because we knew we would end up with a huge amount of data and the complexity of the data. So we needed to make sure that that was secure and settled in very, very well. And then thirdly was using that data. Because there's so much data there, again, a lot of people, and I've seen it in quite a few of the programs around the GCC, is that people don't really use the data and people don't focus on the data and use that data to get better responses from customers. So, you also have a lot of people with their AIs and their bots, and they can look at this and look at that and look at everything. But again, if all you're doing is using AI and bots, then you're actually not using the natural curiosity that comes from your people. Your category managers need to be curious about the data to help them better understand what customers are looking for. Your store managers need to be curious about the data and start asking questions about how often people are coming, when they're coming, what time they're coming, what are they buying when they're coming, when are they buying it when they're coming, so that they can better understand their stock requirements. I think if you leave everything to too much automation, you will lose the passion of the people behind it to actually go and find out what they need to do and find out some information themselves as well.
Yeah, that's a very interesting take, Mark, because there is so much only a technology can do, and as much as technology is an enabler and an assistance, but we cannot take out the human element in that conversation. And I think
because it's customers and they are human as well. And I think what you just said is right. It's about enabling. It only enables you so far, but as a human being, you need to be curious about what's happening. Category manager, store manager, whoever it may be, I'm curious. I mean, you know how curious I am about data and about the information that sits within that data, but then you've actually got to use it and do something with it.
So true. So I'll build upon this. So right now Mark walked across the whole 3 points how you would go around strategizing. Now coming to Mr. Saleh, once you do it, and you have also you have multiple segments in Kuwait, and you've taken in this whole digital transformation. Now, what were the common challenges that come when you're looking at these kind of loyalties while you're executing it, and specifically in the region? Because we tend to overcomplicate because we look at a West and we don't understand that this is a different region with so many nationalities and so many different likings. So how do we beat these challenges, and what are some challenges that you have come across and overcome?
Okay. I'll speak out of our experience with our program now, and I'll probably reiterate a lot of what Mark just said. And to set out 3 main guidelines to how we managed our challenges, it was we gotta determine the objective. You don't do it because others are doing it. You gotta do it because you want to get some insight on that. You have certain objectives you want to achieve. Otherwise, you're better off not doing it. And once we understand why we do something, it helps refocus on what's important. And the other thing that's one of the main other challenges that I guess is faced by all retailers is that we gotta invest. It's not tipping. You're investing in your consumer, and you gotta be disciplined. You have to discipline, have an open mind. You need to believe that you gotta give to get. So determining how much you're willing to invest to get, that's one key element there. And a lot of, I guess, as I said, a lot of it's in retail, fear and giving back. But you got to get past that point. The third point, and Mark also mentioned that, is simplifying. We got to simplify. I can't stress that enough. Consumers today don't have that time to break down your complicated programs. It's difficult on the operations, it's difficult on the consumer, so don't complicate things. We got to simplify. So in essence, these were the main guidelines that took us through the journey of developing our program. And you mentioned a very interesting point, and it's how basically we take examples of successful retailers who mastered the loyalty programs like the Costco membership or the Amazon Prime or the Metro membership. And how do you take something like that that rewarded customers on their purchasing habits and so on, and taking an idea of that sort and localizing it to our region? And what we face is that in our specific region, consumers usually get benefits for free. People usually take it for granted that I need to take the benefits at zero cost. And so, and especially in Kuwait, what we have is a very social program where we have co-ops. And these co-ops basically reward consumers on their purchasing. So you would actually get up to $1,000 or $2,000 on cash back annually just for purchasing from that co-op. However, it was restricted on locals and people who actually resided in that specific co-op area. And so taking an idea from successful memberships in the West and looking at how customer perspective and social perspective, we had to come up with something that would attract our customers. And what we came up with was a membership program that did not require you to actually pay up front. So there's a zero risk program, and customers would enlist, and based on your purchases, you will get a cashback rebate at the year end. And only then we would basically deduct our cashback or our membership fee. And so customers like that approach where they had no risk up front. I guess that was the main factor for our success in that program.
So it's interesting, right? Both of you said, and I think it's a common theme coming, that as brands and as leaders and it's very important to have the objective and drill that objective right from the top level to the bottom level in the organization, so that people understand, because there are so many times that you go to a retail store and you see a loyalty and as a consumer you go and ask the cashier and say, what is this loyalty program? And they say, you get points. That's it. And the shopper is like, okay, what am I supposed to do with the points? So it is the communication. If it's not going down, it's starting at the boardroom there, but if it's not trickling down, it becomes very interesting. And then you also mentioned, which was very interesting because it will take me to the next question to Mr. Mohd Sohel, is about investing, right? And there is a saying that give customers what you want, not what you can spare. But because the supermarket business is such a low margin business, there is this tendency to give either from the supplier or from what you can spare. Now, how do you overcome that challenge? And Mr. Sohel, you have been in this process because you are managing two different spectrums. You have supermarkets in a very low income group, and now you've started this whole niche organic group, right? So how do you cater to that?
Hi, everyone. Actually, it's interesting to see. Actually, Mark actually has covered most of the whole discussion in a very nutshell, actually. And Saleh also added in a very good way by how, it's, as you say, loyalty, it starts actually by the word itself. How do you build loyalty with the customer? That starts with the objective and the business model by itself. And I think most of the panelists would agree that, in these times where customers have very, as a retailer, you don't have much of differentiation in the same products and everything is the same. It's all about, how you can differentiate and how exactly you can profile the customers. You can't be everything to everyone, as they say. You've got to really have to create a loyalty with your customers, with your product offerings or your the experience which they come with you. And as Mark rightly said, it's this reading the data also is an art, actually. It's not as this AI and all. It has to come naturally. And today, if you see, the real challenge is people are not ready. See, when you see a lot of data, also there's something called uncoding the data. And that's a very thin line, which it's, and which I really, because I also have an appetite for data. But when you read it, now there is a very thin line which you need to read. And these are based on trends, or these are based on what the market, See, now we look at it. The biggest challenge we have today in this market is the consumer behavior is changing very drastically. Because within this 1 year, we have anxiety levels going so high. So what does that mean? The customer spends lesser time in the store. He's not concentrating. So what does that translate to? Lesser choices for him. Now you see, this is something which really goes. It has changed in 1 year. So when last year we would say more choices, more varieties, but today we say reduce the stress for him in the shop, let him enjoy the shop and just pick up what he wants and then go. So this is what we have. See, the customers evolve so drastically, and this whole business going online. So what do you think now? In another 5 years, where do you see yourself as a retailer? This is sometimes I really think, are these big models really going to survive? Like, what at the end of the day, customer gets everything. In the end, you're giving me the same Kit Kat, and I just need to compare the price. And tomorrow there will be a software which will say Giant, Carrefour, and Lulu. Compare the prices. Tick. This is what I want. What's left? You start reducing your prices and reducing your prices. But then again, what happens is, as as with any relationship, if you look at it, now the beauty of the relationship is how you have, as Saleh said, how have you been investing in your relationship? So if you are investing over the period, a good investment, and I totally agree with what Saleh says, invest back on the customer. If we don't invest now, tomorrow we won't get a chance to invest also. They're already bye-bye. They're already acquired by someone who's smarter than us. And if you ask me today, it's an open ball game now. Tomorrow, my son can say, I'm a retailer today. What is there? The data is there. The products are there with the supplier. You just need to have four walls, and now you can just go online. That's it. So coming back to, as you said, now it's a very challenging time, and loyalty cannot be. You got to earn loyalty. You can't just say that tomorrow I'm loyal. I'm going to launch a loyalty program which is very attractive, and people are going to jump into it. We have to earn, and then we have to. And as I said today, if you want to take my perspective as a retailer, you can't be everything to everyone. You need to create a niche for yourself, and you got to live with that. I don't know how many use that, but we have to create a niche for ourselves. Otherwise, but then again, identifying the niche is another challenge, and sticking on to it is another challenge.
Yeah, I agree. Mark has just written that point. You have to move from loyalty to engagement, and this, I think all three of you have come with one or two broad guidelines, right? Is identify the objective, objective, invest in the customer, and that's why I asked that question. Give your customer what you want and don't what you can spare. Which automatically brings to my next question for all three of you, and probably we'll start with Mr. Sohel.
Sorry. I just want to add this. I as a retailer, I am engaging with the. I have some of my stores are in an area where the laborers are, and today I am serving even the most high-end customer, the organic customer. So the needs are completely different for both these customers. Sure. See, end of the day, as a customer, everyone wants the best, as everyone knows. But it's about understanding what each customer needs. Also, that's also something which you need to understand. That comes with consumer behavior, and consumer behavior always, as long as this retail is there, as I always believe that consumer behavior comes by putting your ear on the ground. So everywhere when we go, unless and until you don't put your ears on the ground, and every step the customer is taking, you need to understand what is the challenge they have, and based on that, you need to evolve your product or your loyalty program.
No, I agree. I think largely everybody has had the same theme, right? And you have to, this whole COVID-19 situation, we have called the frontline workers, and the supermarket actually are the frontline workers, because they are interacting with people day in, day out, delivering. Even when there was a lockdown, you still had somebody coming and doing home delivery for you, right? And taking the risk. Now,
I mean, these guys have been heroes without capes. Absolutely, the grocery industry for the last 9 months have been the heroes. I mean, the medical teams, the nurses, the doctors, they've been stunning. But I think this does need to be called out somewhere. That those grocery guys who are out on the front line, wearing a mask for 8 or 9 hours a day, wearing gloves for 9 hours a day, sanitizing, cleaning, trying to keep everybody safe. They're just amazing.
I agree, and I think it's good that we are calling it out here, and I think it will be good for your individual teams to know. And I think largely the message is there. When you speak to people on the floor, they know that they are valued for their contribution to the brand and the society in the reverse order. I'm coming back to the investment, right? Because we said we have to invest in people, but there is also this myth or truth. I don't know. I'll ask this question to, and I'll start with Saleh. That what happens is in the books, the loyalty in terms of whatever you actually goes as a liability. Right? And most CFOs will say, where is the ROI? Because ROI is number, but sometimes there is behavioral numbers, right? And how do you perceive it? I'll start with Saleh, but I want each one of you to give your perspective. That is it a liability in your perspective, or is it a benefit for the business, asset for the business?
So my CFO is not here, so I'll speak freely. It's much a myth as the customer is always right as a myth. It's an asset. I believe it's an investment that you decide to make. And it's an investment that you need to look at in the full context of things. And to help us better understand this is that I invested in this to get away from the noise, the daily and weekly noise of flyer program, price wars and promotions, and so on. And that became something that really worried me, is that we were going in week in, week out, looking at what other retailers were doing in terms of pricing and so on. And that it was clear to me that didn't create loyalty with our customers. So you have to give back in order to make sure that your customers are loyal to your concept. Obviously, customer service is definitely an essential thing, but we have to make sure that investing in loyalty and considering that as an asset that is going to reap benefits down the line.
Absolutely. I mean, I would agree with that, and ultimately, that there is always a break point with the points in terms of what you end up putting into liabilities. But ultimately, for me, it's free money. My CFO is also not here. For me, it's free money because it means I can use those points and look where those points are to a specific customer and say to this customer, look, we've got some free money for you. Why aren't you using it? So, and then try and encourage them to come into the store, because once I know I've got them in the store, then they'll use those points plus a little bit extra, because that's where my opportunity is. If people are not using the points, why are they not using them?
So true. So Sohel, you want to add a perspective? I'm assuming that you'll say that they've already covered it all, but it's always interesting to get a perspective.
Yeah, it's like as I always think, it's when we do a loyalty program, we already when we price, basically it should be somewhere in the back of your mind. You need to be knowing that how you're going to get it back, but it's about giving it back to the customer and giving and taking it also. It's like it's a give and take for everything. Even for the consumer, it's every value comes at a price, and every that's how it is actually. So as long as you don't do it right, see, as Mark said in the beginning, if you don't know what you're doing, it will end up being a liability. Because
right.
if those numbers are not summing up with your customers, something is really wrong, and that loyalty is going to eat into that further into what your challenges are.
So of all the three people, I think your CFO is next to you because you still give a little moderate answer.
I don't know who the audience are, and I, as a retailer, I always think that you might also be my potential customer. So I don't want to make you feel that. I don't mind giving it to you.
No, I agree. But I think it's good. I'll probably have another panel with the CFO separately and see their perspective on this. But it's a very valid point, and I think it is an asset. And it's how you describe. I think as leaders, how you decide and pass that information. Like you invest in a fixture, you invest in your employees, in your T-shirts. Those are all visual representations. This is also a representation of the company in investing back in the society in terms of giving back for them to coming to you. So yes, it's an asset. So I'll let you go first this time. So recently in the COVID, you actually launched your entire niche organic supermarket. You partnered with Noon. You are an exclusive supplier for there, and you've also gone online. You've launched e-commerce, and this was a complete shift from your current outlets, which are in Sharjah, which are catering to medium to low value segment. And you launched this entire during this last 3 months of the loyalty. What is that in your mind that key KPI that you want to drive for the next 1 year as a business to say that, this is how I want to take the loyalty? I mean, we've talked about behavior, we've talked about it, but as an owner, you'll say, this is one KPI that I would be really interested in.
I wouldn't say a KPI. See, as a businessman or as a retailer, I always believe that I should consume what I sell to consumers. That's what I always firmly believed. But I think my journey with this understanding of good food and organic goes way back. Whenever I used to travel back home, and I used to travel, I have some interest in the countryside areas of India. Like in Karnataka, I have a bus terminal, which I turned into a mall. So it's one of the green walls of India, this rice plantations and all. So I used to spend time in these agricultural zones and all. So I just when I used to get time and I used to see the food which comes to the supermarket, there's a lot of natural things which go behind it, And if you see the food which we need to consume should be very simple. But when we see today, when we are sitting here in this part of the world where we import from all over the world and all, so we have food which is really complicated by itself. So that's how I had this spark of doing this good food, natural, organic. It's not. I really don't say organic. It's like it's the food the way it's supposed to be. That's what organic is. Then I thought, since I was there at the ground level, I said I will start something which allows people to choose a good lifestyle in food, which helps the community in the long run. So that I said, maybe the challenge is I tried this with my customers, which come under lower segment in income, and they accepted it, but everyone has their limitations now. This whole conventional business has brought things down, and people are not ready to spend that extra thing. Everyone says, "Hey, what the hell, man? So okay, as long as it fills the stomach." Then I said, maybe it's time to try it out, and because I was really shocked, when I started this business. One is the commitment for this business cannot be only money, organic by itself. Second is, when I was spending time in the store also, I had people who have cancer patients who came and, we want this, we want that. So I was thinking, look at this, man. People who are sick want to have, when you go to a doctor, he says, have good food. And the only way they can think of good food is organic. So, we end up becoming a doctor rather than a food retailer. So then that was my objective, so good food. And I thought, this COVID also basically brought in this thought process of people thinking how they can stay healthy. So all put together, I think it was the right place at the right time. But one thing I want to say in this is, I understood one thing in my business in organic is, it's not how much you make, it's about your passion. And I had a passion for selling good food, and that's an extension of what business I did. So I'm not expecting huge profits, or I'm not going to sell big volumes. And as I analyze on your perspective towards loyalty, when I analyze my customers, there are some products which I've never heard in my life also. So there are the customers who I'm dealing with are much more informed than what I know. So my job as a retailer is to understand the requirement of a customer to the lowest level. And that as the beginning, what Mark said is, it will take someone who's passionate about what he's doing. The category managers or the managers, if they're not passionate in selling good food, will not read that they will not see 100 pieces of X product, for example, seaweed, organic, will not go in the category manager's wish list of saying that, no, it's just selling 2 pieces. But that 2 pieces also is something which I need to build. How is it helping the customer? So that's the difference in what I am doing now as an organic retailer, and where I used to call the manager and say, how much ton of tomatoes have you sold this week? How much ton of rice are you sold this week? That was my discussion before. Now I'm saying, give me that one more detailed product, which I want to know. What is that the customer is looking for, where I can add to my basket?
Yeah, I think it's interesting, and I'll tell you, I think I'm pretty much sure each of you must be having one favorite fruit and vegetable, which you must be asking how much I sold it, because I have heard this bit thing that so there was a guy who always said, I know how many potatoes I sell, how many kgs of onions I sell. So it's a passion towards the subject, right? So coming to you,
I think Mark will take the cake from that.
Sajid, dragon fruit, yeah.
Yeah. I was going to say Mark is going to talk either about dragon fruit or he's going to talk about baguettes. That how the baguette can go to the moon, right? How much he sold. So that's the one I remember. So coming to Saleh, again, you already touched back on how you went through your entire program on Oncost, right? And it's a membership where you don't take an upfront money, which entices, because in the Middle East we are a very privileged community, right? And we think that we should get everything free. And at the same time, you have taken it across your various segments, right? From wholesale to express and this. Now, over the years, how have you, it would be good for the audience and the people who are passionate about this subject, that what are the 1 or 2 insights that you think have been very critical, how you understand your customers and their contribution to the business?
Well, I mean, as we probably all said, there's a lot of data behind this, and you also need to make sure and understand what's important. And I think all the KPIs that we look into are important. But personally, I personally like to look into on a weekly basis on my membership sign up, because that gives me an indication on my go-to-market approach if it's acceptable by the customer or not. Are the customers willing to spare few minutes from their time to actually sign up to my membership while they're in the store? And B, are they willing to actually come back and start shopping? Have they enjoyed the experience? So membership sign up, I would say, is one of the main figures that I would like to see on a weekly basis. And to be honest, we're proud to say that we've almost signed up in-store and off and online around 10% of all eligible consumers in Kuwait. And that figure is a big number for me because we've only been there for almost 2.5 years in terms of a membership, not as a retailer, but in terms of a membership. So, and then the next step would be for me is that how do I retain that customer? And the idea of there's repeat customers and reoccurring customers. So how do you ensure that the customer signs up again for the membership and auto renews his membership? And how do you make sure that that customer comes back and shops with you? And let me give you a few numbers from our end. 50% of our members or our sales actually come from our members. So it's a big chunk of our sales. So, and the interesting part is that a member spends twice what a non-member spends in the store. So to me, that just makes sense. Again, simplify things. I need to invest in making sure that I sign up more non-members to become members. And there's benefits definitely there for them. And so these two would be probably my main insight that I love to look into on a weekly basis.
Yeah, Mark, I know you're going to say the exact one because I've had some discussions with you regarding this, but I will let you also speak about it because, I remember I asked you this once before and you said, Sajid, acquisition before you get into retention. So that's the whole.
Absolutely. So, I fully agree with that. It is the first thing is acquisition. The second one is then usage after that acquisition. So it's not the first, it's not the download. It's then the actual activation, and then it's a usage, and then we start looking at retention. And I think we did fairly well with. It was over 220,000 in the first 6 months across the 3 countries, which was pretty good. And we were taking in the larger stores around 60 to 65% of the business was going through the program itself. We were very happy with it. But ultimately, it came down to the thing that we were offering, but also the passion of the people. Because one of the things that really made the program work for us was handing it over to the employees on the shop floor. Because without them really understanding it and knowing it, so we even ran teaser events for them. We built it up for them in terms of what we were going to show them, how they were going to do it. We gave them scripts, which is normal in these sort of circumstances, to sell it to customers. And as you guys mentioned earlier, their loyalty card just does points. We went a little bit further than that in that we gave a full script to the employees that they could use, but then actually allowed them to adapt it into their own language and their own words. So they weren't just reading a script and it became quite monotonous and boring. When the customers asked them what it was about, they knew what they had to say, but they could actually use their own words to sell it, which again was a much better way of doing it to get across what we were trying to achieve with the customers. And I think that's why we're so successful. It's just the fact that we had such feedback or such passion from the team themselves to actually sell this program. I think when we were in Kuwait, as an example, we had the tables where we were signing up customers, and one guy was standing there with 6 phones. The customers were literally handing over their phones and downloading it, and the guy was downloading them, and some customers were even saying, which apps do I need to delete so that they could put our app onto the system.
Now that's interesting. And so we have some, in the interest of time, we have actually some questions coming. So let's take those questions. So one of the questions is, in the current scenario, how to make customer loyal with your loyalty program when the customer is owning loyalty program for pretty much all the brands?
Yeah. I'd like to jump in on that one because...
Sure. Go ahead, Mark. Sure.
I think you're moving from loyalty to engagement. every brand at the moment has a loyalty thing, and you collect points, which is again what we're saying. You have to have a loyalty program because everybody else has got it. You have to make it more than just a loyalty program. You have to make sure that customers are using the product that you're giving them outside of the store itself, and that's the key.
That's true. Any other perspective from Saleh or Sohel on this?
Well, I would say, as he said, it all depends actually. You know, there are you'll have to identify that if you already built a base of customer who's looking for value, then you got to beat the value. That's one challenge you'll have. And if you've built a loyalty based on the quality which you're selling, you got to up the quality. So, you know, that's one thing. That's the only way of overcoming this. You know, because sometimes every customer will indulge. You know, as long as we are humans, we all indulge in our urge to understand the different the other things. So, I think one of the major KPIs would be whether the spend of the customer is coming down month on month. That will allow you, but they will sway. See, customers will sway because the products are quite similar. You know, so that's one thing which you will have to analyze as how innovative you can get. Because there's no end to innovation, as they say, and how much you're ready to spend will decide how long you can hold on to them.
Yes, I think there, and this is something that we started to look at within the data itself. It's not necessarily what customers are buying from you; it's what they're not buying from
you. Yeah, it's interesting. Saleh, you want to jump in?
I mean, essentially, as much as we would want it to be, it's not a marriage between us and the customer. You know, it's
absolutely.
So we'd love it to be, but it's not. So, and it ends up being that this is the challenge that we need to face, and this is what pushes us to improve and make sure that we're always constantly offering something in addition to what we're currently offering that would entice our customers to come back to shop with us. And so my customer could be shopping at Gian or elsewhere, and the whole point is that you are offering a proposal and they're buying into it, and they could also buy into many various other proposals out there.
Right. And there's another question. We'll keep it quick, but we have around 2 minutes left. So is that, and I'll ask it with a perspective from my side too. So the question is, how has the loyalty program adapted to the customer's requirements during the pandemic? And I personally was also thinking about it, right? I mean, what happens is we talk about giving to the society, and there are a lot of loyalty points people have consumed. Generally, people have a tendency to contribute to good cause, right? So maybe it can be saying that, you know, let's give it to the frontline workers, or let's say that, you know, give it to research, or let's say to the PPE kit, you know, something towards the society contribution. And where these points, I'm sure many of these people won't mind giving this points towards that cause, and a retailer can match or mix or whatever around it. Do you think that in the region, and this is not only in grocery, across the brands, has any loyalty struck out for you, or anything that has been done, or you think it should be done? And this is open to all three of you. I will start with Saleh this time.
Well, I mean, I'll talk from our end. When during the pandemic, we started creating special memberships for the frontliners, and where we started offering them extremely special pricing and extremely special proposals for those who were actually busy fighting different wars out there, and so we started developing certain memberships for those specific individuals. And the other point that I want to stress about the pandemic and how we as retailers actually dealt with that is that we tend to have a confirmation bias. We tend to say that we know what customers will be buying and how they buy it and what's their purchasing habits. And what loyalty helps us understand is that it breaks that bias. It helps us understand that not everything that we grow up to know is actually right. And sometimes we use those and numbers, analytics to actually understand our customers. So, and there's been a lot of talk of, yes, customers during the pandemic went crazy on buying frozen items and buying that and so on. But loyalty with the data helped us understand what really customers were going after and how we could help them and ease that process for them.
Anything else you want to add? I think this is a very interesting point, but I'm just going to quickly go because we are just about our time. So
I think the key for everybody during this time was availability of product, because the countries that we operate in, we have to import a lot of the products, and where the countries we were importing from were also having problems with shelves being cleaned via their own customers. So I mean, we went further than our normal availability tracking, and for each of the different elements of the pandemic, we had one person in charge of the communication and the tracking, and then we also had an alternate in case that one person ended up being out of the business for any reason. And we were tracking these things on a daily basis. We were tracking sales going up, sales going down. We purchased some strategic stocks that we held in different stores that could be moved around, and held them back until we found suppliers were doing it. I mean, we were looking at somewhere around 400,000 data points a day purely on availability of 400 lines. So it was an absolute key for it.
So it's quite a task, right?
I don't think any data system could have predicted what would happen during the pandemic.
Yeah. And because there was initially during the pandemic, there was this whole panic buying which started. So that also it takes your availability on a totally different scale, right? Because all the staples are gone and things like that. So,
but also the movement, Sajid, of things like, people would be going to work and then they would eat lunch at Starbucks or a restaurant, this and the other. So then all of a sudden they were working from home. So we had to have enough Heinz soup and Heinz baked beans and things like this that people were eating for lunch, which we didn't see.
It all went back to the basics, Sajid. Everything was the basics. People stuck to the basics. They wanted the staple food. They wanted the staple diet. They were not indulging in things. And that itself, as Mark said, was focus on the basic lines, and obviously improve the hygiene standards. And all these were things which we had to actually overcome, or rather take care.
We've reached our time, but I'll say this is a very fascinating topic, and I'm sure all four of us would love to continue talking on it. And I think we should probably have a part 2 to this. I'm passionate about it, I know, and each of you have spoken at different levels. We have actually spoken about what I want to do is tell the audience what the key takeaways, right? And it actually, the key takeaways have been coming throughout the conversation. And as Saleh said, invest in the customers. Mark said, keep it simple. Sohel said, you cannot make everyone happy, but focus on your niche and deliver that niche. And there's a lot more we discussed, but I just want to take these 3 key takeaways. And also for all the finance managers listening, please remember, loyalty is a asset.
Spend more on loyalty. That's
spend more on loyalty. Thank you.
Sajid, I would sign up saying this is, you got to earn loyalty from the customers. You can't spend loyalty on the customers. You got to earn it. That's the way we got to look at it.
I agree.
And loyalty with customers is like any relationship. That's all I can say. It's just an extension in a larger volume.
I agree. Any last word from Mark and Saleh before we sign off?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
Okay.
Just stay safe, everybody, and thank your grocery worker.
Thank you, guys. Thank you to the market team.
We look forward for participation next year. Good luck.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks. Nice to talk
Thanks,
to you.
Sajid. Thanks,
Mark,
Thanks.
Sajid, Deepika. Thanks, man. All well.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you here.